Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. Disney is upset. LucasFilm is upset. Kathleen Kennedy is upset. How heartbreaking. Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant, Leslye Headland, is upset. Oh my goodness, and that's not all. Even actress Amanda Stenberg, who thinks she's God's gift to humanity, is upset. And now, the Shill media that will say, write, and do anything to preserve its access to Disney is also upset. But why are all of these groups and individuals upset? Well, it has to do with the fact that collectively, they hate Star Wars fans because the vast majority of Star Wars fans and normies alike who have watched Headland's awful show, The Acolyte, have totally rejected it. But before proceeding, I'd like to ask everyone to please like this video, please share the video on social media, please subscribe to support this channel, and please press the bell to receive notifications. Thanks! All of the specific groups and individuals that I mentioned also have something else in common. They're all ideologues determined to push their woke identity politics agenda on everyone, and when anyone freely shares criticism about anything that they have created, they freak out. Because to them, any criticism, which may have absolutely nothing to do with their ideological agenda, is still viewed by them as being an attack on their agenda. For woke identity politics activists, they have repeatedly demonstrated that their ideology and its message are, to them, sacrosanct. In other words, to them, no one is allowed to criticize their ideology, its message, or any movie or TV show that heavily features the message. And the more woke a movie or TV show is, and the more money that a studio has spent to produce it, the more likely the studio, the people who were involved in the production, and the Shill access media will lash out at individuals who criticize it, while all of those individuals are simply exercising their protected freedom of speech. And I'm not making that up, it's a fact. But I want to emphatically state something right now in this video. While I cannot speak for people living in countries outside of the United States, all citizens and resident aliens living in the United States are guaranteed the right to freedom of speech as protected by the First Amendment to the US Constitution, which means that when people don't like something, they have every right to express their dislike. And that's what I'm doing on my YouTube channel, and that's what many other YouTubers are also doing on their channels. Each of us has the right to express our opinions. And each of us has the right to say when we like something or when we don't like something. Freedom of speech is a fundamental right. But guess what happens, folks? When I or any other YouTuber expresses negative opinions about a show like Headland's woke Star Wars series The Acolyte, Disney, Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, Leslye Headland, Amanda Stenberg, and the Shill access media have all attacked the fans. All of them. Even before The Acolyte premiered, as I had talked about in a video that I had released at the time, Kathleen Kennedy released statements attacking all male Star Wars fans because she knew that most Star Wars fans would not like the show. She just didn't know at the time just how much the show was going to be nearly unanimously rejected. If there was anything that could reunite most of the divided Star Wars fandom, it's their mutual hatred for The Acolyte. That's quite an accomplishment. Then a few weeks ago, actress Amanda Stenberg released a music video which she used to attack Star Wars fans, and any negative comments being made against the show, she immediately labeled as being racist. So if anyone criticizes the show's writing, acting, directing, or editing, to Amanda Stenberg, it's all a form of racism. And this is why I said what I did earlier in the video, that anyone who pushes the woke identity politics ideology or its message also views any form of criticism, including any criticism that has nothing to do with a show's or movie's woke content, as all being an attack on the ideology itself. In other words, if you don't like something for any reason, you're not allowed the same protected rights to freedom of speech as people who agree with their far-left ideological point of view. But the attacks on Star Wars fans didn't end there, because Leslye Headland and multiple Shill media sites are all attacking fans too. Screen Rant has declared Star Wars fans to be review bombers in this article entitled "The Acolyte Showrunner Speaks Out on the Star Wars Show's Review Bombing." Games Radar has declared the same thing with this article entitled "The Acolyte Showrunner Responds to Review Bombing of Her Star Wars Show. I Think It's Pretty Expected." Men's Journal has followed suit with its article, "The Acolyte Showrunner Responds to Review Bombers in a New Interview," and then goes on to also call fans internet trolls in the article's first paragraph. The website named Comic Book just came right out and called fans trolls in the title of its article, "Star Wars: The Acolyte Creator Weighs In on Trolls Review Bombing the Series." Now, the reason that I'm showing you all of these articles is to assure you that I'm not exaggerating about the Shill Access media attacking fans. The evidence is right there and is exemplified by this article from Collider, written by a guy who has only worked for Collider since May. And the article is entitled, "Star Wars' Biggest Problem is the Fans." So according to Collider, the problem isn't Disney, it isn't Lucasfilm, or anyone involved in the show's production. The problem is the fans who were in no way involved in the show's production. In other words, as far as Hollywood and the Shill Access media are concerned, Hollywood is blameless and bears no personal responsibility whatsoever when their productions completely and utterly fail. Both Hollywood and the Shill Access media are not only completely out of touch with fans and audiences at large, they're also completely out of touch with reality and have instead created their own nonsensical view of reality that has nothing to do with reality itself. Psychologically, this would be considered to be delusional. But let's examine this hit piece on the entire Star Wars fandom. The internet has never made it easy for people to speak their minds. Oh, really? There are a number of social media platforms devoted to letting tens of millions of people speak their minds on a daily basis, and they do. So the author of this article, who has only worked for Collider for 2 months, begins it by gaslighting readers with a total lie. Convenience of digital connection aside, there have always been online trolls and toxic comments ready to pounce on anyone who dares to bear their authentic self in public life. Oh, really? Given how many tens of millions of people are posting on multiple social media platforms on a daily basis, once again, the article's author continues to gaslight the readers by assuming that anything that anyone posts will immediately be attacked. Yet he provides zero evidence to support his claim. And the newest round of controversies and unfounded criticisms directed at Star Wars projects demonstrates that the beloved sci-fi franchise is no different. Wow, you can't even get through the first sentence of this article without the author gaslighting on multiple fronts. Unfounded criticisms? When tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people are criticizing a show or movie for very similar reasons, then their criticisms are completely justified. So right off the bat, the article's author is essentially attempting to completely delegitimize the vast majority who have a negative opinion about the latest Star Wars series, The Acolyte. And Star Wars as a franchise is nowhere near as loved today as it was before Disney purchased Lucasfilm and the franchise from George Lucas. For decades, viewers have been relentlessly attacking Star Wars performers and creators. So again, more gaslighting and zero evidence presented to justify this false claim. With the renewed push against TV shows like The Acolyte demonstrating the venom with which a particular set of audience members scrutinize everyone's favorite galaxy. So let's be very clear about one thing here. The author of this article is once again attempting to delegitimize the opinions of the vast majority of viewers who have watched The Acolyte and don't like it for a wide variety of reasons because the series has a multitude of problems. The vitriol of these persistent voices has subsequently spread throughout the internet, making it feel impossible to say anything positive about Star Wars without turning every discussion into a heated debate. More gaslighting. The author of this article very proudly wrote it for Collider, which clearly demonstrates that he's contradicting himself and attempting to create a strawman argument on top of the gaslighting. The unacceptable abuse that Star Wars prequel-era actors like Ahmed Best received from fans in the late 90s and early 2000s has been well documented. Oh, is he referring to the media's abuse of Ahmed Best? Because the internet was still in its infancy in 1999 when Star Wars I: The Phantom Menace was released in theaters. MySpace was created in 2003, which was 4 years after The Phantom Menace was released, and 1 year after Star Wars II: Attack of the Clones was released, but before Star Wars III: Revenge of the Sith was released. Facebook was created in 2004, which was the same time period when MySpace was created. Twitter was created in 2006, which was after Revenge of the Sith was released. In terms of social media, the only things that existed when The Phantom Menace was released were a hodgepodge of early internet message boards that weren't visited by a lot of people as compared with today's social media platforms. So to try and blame fans for criticisms on Ahmed Best is a complete fabrication by the article's author, especially when you look at something Ahmed Best tweeted in 2018, that it was the media backlash that followed the release of The Phantom Menace that still affects his career today, not the fans. So trust me, folks, do your own research before you blindly believe idiots like the author of this article, who probably wasn't even alive when The Phantom Menace was released in 1999. And since then, negative Star Wars voices have only been amplified by the mainstream spread of social media. Leslye Headland's groundbreaking series has been relentlessly review-bombed online, causing The Acolyte to possess a huge disparity between its positive critical reception and abysmal audience score on aggregate websites like Rotten Tomatoes. Well, you see, I truly hate to explain the obvious to the author of this article, but there's a huge difference between professional critics and general audiences. First, critics are paid to watch shows and movies, and they are paid to write reviews and critiques. While conversely, the audience, which includes myself, has to pay to watch movies and shows, and aren't paid to write reviews and critiques. So that's not a trivial difference between the two groups. It's a huge difference because unlike professional critics, whose reviews may be influenced by their sources of revenue, general audiences are far more likely to be completely honest about what they think. And when the vast majority of the audience hates a particular show or movie, they have just as much right to express their distaste as the paid critics, who the audience outnumbers by thousands of times to one. And who's more believable anyway, a stuffy woke paid critic or average people like yourselves? People probably pay a lot more attention to audience scores than they do to the paid critics. Since the majority of these hate-filled criticisms are either overreactions to alleged continuity errors within the Star Wars universe, or backlash aimed at attacking the show's long overdue inclusivity, the bad actors spreading them are clearly spinning controversy out of nothing, and this manufactured outrage can be directly traced back to the demographics of the original trilogy. Here we go, folks, the demographics of the original trilogy. Yes, without directly saying it, the male white author of this article, who didn't even exist when the original trilogy was released in theaters beginning in the late 1970s, is attacking people like his own parents and grandparents. And most specifically, white men, because men have always been the biggest demographic for Star Wars, and white men have always outnumbered other minority groups in this country. So everything that's wrong with Star Wars, according to this author who has only worked for Collider for 2 months, is the white male fans of Star Wars. And as I said earlier in the video, who attacked white male fans before the Acolyte even premiered? LucasFilm president Kathleen Kennedy. And who got paid to write this article? It's Young Author. And Collider certainly doesn't want to lose its access to Disney or Lucasfilm, so of course they're going to parrot whatever Kathleen Kennedy is saying. And I'm not going to bother reading the rest of that gaslighting article because it's simply not worth the effort. Most viewers and fans alike know that they don't like the Acolyte, but the woke shill access media can't stand that fact, so they come out swinging to attack anyone who dares to dislike it, which is the vast majority. The shill access media tries to make readers believe that it's only a handful of people who don't like the Acolyte, while it's very clearly the vast majority who don't. And when people speak up, the shill access media attacks audience credibility and wants you to believe that you shouldn't exercise your First Amendment rights to freedom of speech. If you don't like something that Disney has produced, you have just as much right to express that as those that do like it. And in the case of The Acolyte, the number of people who hate the show greatly outnumbered those who like it, showing just how out of touch not only Disney is with the public at large, but also Kathleen Kennedy, Leslye Headland, Amandla Stenberg, and everyone who works for the shill access media. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to everyone who has subscribed to our channel. We appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button, and please feel free to share a comment. If you'd like to help support this channel, please press the red subscribe button, and please press the bell to receive notifications for new content. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.